Welcome aboard. This is the Admiral's Almanac, your leadership life connection, bringing leaders from all walks of life into yours so you can take charge, improve your leadership, and improve your life. With the wit and wisdom of your host, Rear Admiral Gary Hall.
And welcome to the Admiral's Almanac. I'm your host, Gary Hall. We want to thank all our new subscribers and all those positive comments. Mom, thank you. I appreciate that positive feedback. Today, we're introducing you to another distinguished leader in our Council of Captains, a retired Navy captain I've worked with at sea and ashore. We have distinguished Navy Captain Frank Michael. Welcome aboard, Frank.
Thank you, Admiral. It's great to be here.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you, and I hope you enjoyed that fruit basket we had for you in the green room.
Yeah, I did. One of the nicer ones I've ever gotten. So thank you.
Well, we want to thank the supply chain that came through for us in this time. Now, Frank and I will flip over all the cards. Frank and I met while we were working at Naval Air Force's Pacific. You can see the quarterdeck of that building in the new movie Top Gun Maverick. So we worked for the 3-star there, who in the movie is played by ever handsome John Hamm, who's almost as good looking as the 3-star admiral we worked for, who will remain nameless. But during that time, Frank and I made a difference in the helicopter community through the helicopter master plan, convincing the importance of the helicopter in naval operations to the commander, Naval Air Forces Pacific. Don't you think we made a difference there as far as for our community?
I think we did. I think, as I was preparing myself to think about some of the things I wanted to talk about, I think that was a big point in naval aviation, that the Helo master plan and the Bravo to Sea plan. I think it was well put together, and a lot of folks put a lot of time and effort into that. And we had a 3-star boss that believed in it, and folks like you that helped them along the way. And it's worked out to be a tremendous.
Absolutely, and I think I just came back from the Navy Helicopter Association conference, annual conference in Norfolk, Virginia, and there I was impressed with our leadership because of that transition in the helicopter community. We now have helicopter pilots at all ranks of the Navy, including 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star, first for our naval aviation community of the Rotary Wing. Men and women. We also have 3 carrier COs, one of them being Amy Bauern-Schmidt, a woman who's doing a fantastic job deployed. We also have DCAGs and CAGs, which is a surprise to many of our jet fellow aviators. Anyway, so Frank, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, Dallas, Pennsylvania. I usually have to tell people it's near Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area of northeast Pennsylvania, and that kind of lets them understand where the location is a little bit more. But it's a small town. It was maybe 12,000 people live there. I grew up, was born and raised there, and wonderful town to be from. My siblings all still live there. My dad lives there, and they're all within a 9-iron of each other. And it's kind of nice that there's just great community support there for my family. And I love every chance I get to go back and see them. I was just talking to my dad this morning, and they had their annual Memorial Day parade that they hold every single year, and the outpouring of support for men and women in uniform and for remembering our fallen is it's incredible in that small town.
And thank you for bringing that up, because I think a lot of people forget that Memorial Day isn't just signaling the beginning of summer, and it isn't a time to maybe honor our current active duty military or veterans, but it's to honor those that gave all, those that deployed and didn't come home. So, it's a solemn day, but it does also signal the beginning of summer. So what kind of guy were you in high school? Did you play any sports?
The only sport I played, and I was not any good at all, was golf. So, if you looked at me, especially back when I was 40 pounds less, you would think, I probably played football, but no, I played golf. And the reason I played golf is because we got to go to this beautiful, I love playing golf. I was no good at it, but we got to practice at a private country club every day and after school. And it was just a beautiful place to play. And it was really just a real passion of mine. I just, I couldn't get the swing of it, so to speak. My instructor used to always say, "Hey, Frank, here's your problem. You're standing too close to the ball after you hit it."
Well, it's a great lifetime sport, and it's 4 or 5 hours of bonding with friends, and it's a sport where people with less talent can play with people with greater talent. The best advice I ever got was one of my department heads said, "Lieutenant Hall, here's what I want you to do. I want you to hit 2 buckets of balls every day after work for 2 weeks. Then I want you to take 2 weeks off and relax. And then I want you to sell your clubs and never play the game again." So where'd you go? Where did you go to college, Frank?
So same situation, a small college in Dallas, Pennsylvania called College Misericordia. It was a Catholic school. It used to be all women's school. And I think about 5 or 6 years before I started there, they went co-ed. And the reason that I went there was one of the greater decisions my mom ever made and advice I ever took was she enrolled me in college. And I didn't want to go. She just woke me up one morning and said, "Hey, here's your stack of books and here's your schedule. And 8 o'clock, you're supposed to be here." And off I went. But my mom was a nursing professor at this school, and she was able to get every single one of us, all 6 of us, through college and get our degrees. And certainly it changed the trajectory of my life. Like I said, I wasn't particularly going to go to college, but it changed my life, obviously. And it was a great school. They actually are now a university. So they're all growing up. They even have a football team now. So
and talk about leadership in the family. Your mother getting 6 kids to go to college and get through college and graduate from college. That's awesome. So at that point, you weren't necessarily thinking about the Navy, were you?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, never really gave the service any thought at all, to be honest. My dad did 3 very honorable years in the Army around the Korean conflict. He was a artilleryman and instructor, actually, out at Fort Sill. But he had some real personal issues with his service, with some friends that he saw go to Korea and not come back. And he told the story, and it wasn't very long ago. We didn't know this growing up, that he had a friend that was one space in front of him on the list to go to Korea, and it was his best friend Lenny, and Lenny never came home. And I think he's always kind of felt a little bit of guilt over that, and I think that caused him throughout all those years never to really talk about his service. So there wasn't a lot in my house on service. We didn't discuss it. Honestly, it was I think my fourth of 5 years in college, where I thought maybe that I wanted to go fly and join the Navy, and it was actually the Top Gun movie, to be honest, that kind of pushed me along with Officer and a Gentleman, and just decided that's what I want to do, so I gave it a shot.
Well, that's a great opportunity that the movie's making a difference in recruiting. And first of all, we want to honor today, at being Memorial Day, honor the Lennys of the world, our friends, our buddies that maybe took our place, or just through the luck of the draw wound up giving all, where all gave some, but some gave all. So thank you, Lenny, and thank your dad. And sometimes there's divine reasons why one comes home and one does not. But anyway, back to Top Gun. The new movie, Top Gun Maverick, should bring a whole more bunch of young men and women into flying, and I commend you to that movie. So, and also Officer and a Gentleman. What a great movie. DOR, mayonnaise, DOR. I got no place to go. And that was the situation for some of us. You had no place to go. So you wound up completing, you went to AOCS?
I did with the AOCS in 1986 in Pensacola, and I got some great attention and leadership from Gunnery Sergeant Calamari, United States Marine Corps, and not too long after that, made me a naval officer, and went off to flight school just up the road there at Northfield Whiting, and ended up selecting for helicopters and stayed there and finished my helicopter training, and then went on to fly the mighty SH-2 Foxtrot Sea Sprite.
Sea Sprites for peace. And where'd you fly that, at West Coast or East Coast?
Started out on the East Coast. I was in HSL 32 in Norfolk, and had a great tour there. That was the very beginning of Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So we had some interesting tasking and a lot of good work to do. But that was a great tour in a great little helicopter.
Absolutely. I think I've got a few thousand hours in the Sea Sprite and then we both transitioned to Bravos. But before you and I met, you had just finished your department head tour. What were some of the major leadership lessons you learned through your beginning stages of flying?
Well, I think I learned mostly just the value of good leadership and understanding your team and playing to the strengths of your team, and just making sure you were completely accountable and ready to go, because then like I said, it was you knew you had a mission, you knew you were going to go do something important, and you had to make sure you were ready. And just getting a team together, keeping them together, remembering that families are part of the team, and all the things that you have to do as a young leader to make sure families are ready and prepared. It was all very important, but you don't necessarily come to the game understanding all that. You got to kind of learn it pretty quick. And luckily, I was always surrounded by great mentors and people that helped me understand that and teach me good leadership.
Well, I think one of the points you brought out there is an important one, and that is the balance of Navy and mission and family, in that you've got to consider families in today's mission. It doesn't take away from the mission, but I think when you think about families, the service member performs better knowing that his family is being taken care of and prepared and knows what they're getting into. So from there, you and I met up at, as I've already said, at AirPAC, Naval Air Forces Pacific, worked on the Hilo Master Plan, and then you had the opportunity to go execute the Helicopter Master Plan. For those, some of you are fans of the Admiral's Almanac, are helicopter pilots, but those that aren't, the mighty SH-2F and the originals of the SH-60 Bravo, great Seahawk platform, performed mostly off of frigates, destroyers, and cruisers in support of the aircraft carrier. And then with the master plan, we deployed squadrons of SH-60Bs to the aircraft carrier, and you were one of the first to do that, weren't you?
I was the first, and we got to put together that plan. There was a whole lot that went into it, and I always tip the hat to my CO and all the folks behind the scenes at the wing and elsewhere that went through all the tedious work of individually making sure all the billets were filled right and the transition happened right, and everything to the stationary being changed to reflect the right address. And I mean, there's so much that goes into that, but I had the honor, really the privilege to take that squadron to sea and to do some incredible work. By the fact that the mission that we ended up with was a helicopter mission, and whether it was great foresight or divine intervention, it was good that we were on that ship.
So this was HSL 47 Saberhawks, correct? Was that, and that was the
yes.
first Bravo to sea, and you were on the Abraham Lincoln CVN 72.
Abraham Lincoln.
And so it was Christmas 2004, you're sitting in Hong Kong trying to celebrate the holidays, take care of sailors that are missing home, being deployed, and something happened in the world. What happened in the world there? December.
Well, yeah. So it was the first time we were off the ship in a while, and as you know, one of the things about being on a ship is the noise, the constant noise. And you want that noise. You don't want it to stop when you're underway because it means something bad has happened. You go cold and dark, but just getting off the ship and being able to get a really nice hotel room, and I remember just being fast asleep very early in the morning on the 24th, and I had the TV on, and I just started hearing some things about this tsunami, and of course nobody had a lot of details yet, other than it was fairly significant. But I remember just getting up and packing my bags and heading back to the ship because I knew that we were going to be involved in it in some way. So got that liberty cut quite short, but it was okay.
Well, interesting thing is, so that was the tsunami in Indonesia that over 20,000 people were missing, several 100,000 people were killed. The USS Abraham Lincoln responded with you on board, and that's when we found out that, okay, in this mission, F-18s don't have a role in that mission, but the helicopter community did. So this was not anywhere in your playbook, so your leadership had to be pretty flexible. What'd you do to prepare to help those countries in Indonesia with helicopter support?
Well, there was a lot of things we had to think about, and most of it was just discovery learning on everybody's part as we got ready to execute. But I do want to make a comment about the fact that it wasn't going to be a tactical air show on that ship for a while, and that was true. They actually we put the air wing mostly in the hangar bay, and we flew some planes off because we needed that flight deck for these two squadrons of helicopters. But just testament to the character of naval aviation and the great men and women that lead those efforts. I had COs, my fellow COs on the air wing that were, first of all, very accepting of having another helicopter squadron on board. They readily accepted me into their wardroom and part of the team. But we were only maybe 2 or 3 days into the mission, and I had tactical air F-18 COs coming out on the flight deck and helping us wash helicopters and load helicopters with water and all the stuff that we were flying in every day, and had all their squadron doing the same thing. I thought that was just an incredible show of unity. Again, just mission first in this air wing, and it was really it's incredible to see how all that came together. But into the mission itself, that H-60 Bravo is not a cargo helicopter. It's not the mission. So we had to make some decisions about taking out sonobuoy launchers and removing a lot of things out of the back. And, some things I got waivers for, some I didn't. I just, we had to act kind of quick and make room to be able to get people ashore and then to move water and food all day long. And so we had to do some reconfiguration to do that. But I think, again, just the beauty of it all was how well everything came together to support it. It was seamless.
Well, I think if those of us that remember back then seeing on the worldwide news your helicopters landing in open fields and just being rushed by Indonesians seeking whatever you could provide them, water, food, things of that nature. So that must have created some hairy situations of landing in crowds.
It did, and that was something I don't know that we fully anticipated. I think we talked about it, and I actually had the first landing, and we had a reporter on from CNN. I think it was Mike Chinoy, as I recall, and it was the first place we could find to land, and there was nobody around. There was absolutely no one. And then before you know it, we were rushed, and these folks were, we're sitting there, rotors turning. These folks are in the back of the airplane. They're in the cabin, grabbing stuff, and took a few things they probably shouldn't have taken, like some SAR equipment, and I think we lost a battle axe and a few other things. But I remember sitting there as my crew chief is kind of getting rushed, and he's asking me, what do I do? And I said, we're gonna just have to make the assumption here they're hungry, they're starving, they're desperate, and let's just let this go. And we weren't really prepared to do much of anything else except the best we could. And fortunately enough, they just needed some food and water. They were absolutely desperate.
Well, that sure took some flexibility in leadership and showed compassionate leadership in understanding the situation on the ground.
Yeah, well, we had some great guidance too. We had a great admiral that was leading the charge out there, and prepared us really well for what we were probably going to come into, and the importance of the mission. Admiral Crowder, and so I felt very prepared from a leadership perspective to expect the unexpected and just be well prepared to make decisions.
Well, you had an exciting and outstanding and distinguished command tour of the Saberhawks of HSL 47, and I think that goes to your upbringing, your faith-based education, the leadership you had, and the passion with which you led. And so you come back to the United States, and it's now a year later, and our Gulf Coast gets hit with a Hurricane Katrina, that devastated the Gulf Coast area. And again, you were like Forrest Gump. You were right in the middle of the action. So tell me what happened there with helicopters.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I felt like Forrest Gump there in the movie, kind of hitting all these major events. But just the timing of it was such that this hurricane happened just a few months, not even a few months, but just weeks after we had gotten back. And, when you come back from deployment, you're always the most ready squadron because you're at the top of your game. You've done all the training. You've got all the flight hours. We operated off a carrier, and we did a very similar mission. So Commodore Weber asked me to put together a West Coast squadron to join an East Coast super squadron that was already in place in Pensacola, and to kind of lead that HSL effort in New Orleans, and that was it was an honor to do it. And of course, we were anxious to go out there and get that job done. So we got into that mission, and again, it was kind of like the tsunami. You weren't really prepared for what was going to happen. You weren't sure what you were going to find, and but your training and your experience just kind of kicks in, and again, everybody just formed around the mission, and that went off very well. So we flew out. I think we had 10 helicopters, flew them into Pensacola Naval Air Station, and we based out of there for a couple of weeks, flying into New Orleans, and then we were transitioned to an aircraft carrier, I believe it was Truman, and we performed the mission from the Truman for a couple of weeks, and then came home.
Wow! So, was there any lessons from Indonesia where you went, okay, guys and gals, I've been here before. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, it was pretty similar. The first few days there, when we first flew into New Orleans, it seemed I thought that probably most of the rescue part of the mission had been done already because we were a few days behind everybody else. But I remember hitting New Orleans, the very first time, and we just came. It was like a movie in a weird kind of sense. It was like flying into Disney World. There was just everything was flooded, and there were people on rooftops everywhere, and it was almost too much to take in for a few minutes. But we were right into and there was a helicopter. I'll never forget this. It was a Huey helicopter that was landed on top of one of these apartment buildings, and he had his skids just dug into the rooftop. And obviously you couldn't take off, so they abandoned the helicopter there. But it was all part of the scene where, you're just trying to get your head around it, and people everywhere with, SOS on the rooftops, and they're standing there waving their arms and needing to be rescued. So we were right in the thick of things from the beginning. but after you kind of got into the rhythm, it was just pretty much like what we're just doing. We're just picking people up, rescuing them, and taking them to a place of safety, and then repeat.
So, all these helicopters are operating as a team, but also independently. Did you have a leadership message for the other pilots? Because a lot of people don't understand that some of these pilots are commanded by young 20-somethings that have to make decisions on the fly. Is there anything that you kind of imprinted in their thought process so that they could lead well?
The one thing I wanted to talk about mostly, and we talked about it every day, was just being safe and not getting caught up in the moment. So you had to look around you. You had to be aware of where the people were. You had to be aware that you're not always going to be in the game. You might be supporting. You might be standing off. It did become a problem. It was a bit of a hornet's nest there for a few days where everybody was there that owned a helicopter. And it was more, just trying to survive, not hit anybody else, let alone looking for survivors and people in the water. But the point was, you've got to be safe about what you're doing. And, it may not be your day. You might be on the bench today and you might be just helping out in other ways, but don't get so caught up that you put yourself or your crew at risk.
Absolutely. Safety first, and everything else will work out. So you completed that mission, which must have been quite adrenaline pumping, first operating from Pensacola and then operating from the carrier, and your carrier experience on Lincoln definitely helped make that transition, because I'm sure there were plenty of pilots that had not yet operated off a carrier.
Yeah.
So all that work, you were recognized for that, and later you were selected to command a deep draft ship. And when I say deep draft, people understand that there's only so many aircraft carriers and so many amphibious assault ships. It adds up to about a total of 13. So you're a Navy captain screened to command Big Deck, one of the capital ships of the United States Navy, the USS Boxer, one of the newer amphibious assault ships in the Navy. So what did it feel like being selected to command the Boxer?
Yeah, it was actually kind of surreal. It took a while to kind of understand the magnitude of that and what it meant, and I don't think I fully understood it till I walked on board and just saw that the size of the ship and the crew on board and the mission, and it was just it was just an incredible feeling, and to be part of that. And then of course you go in as the XO, so you're in a lot of learning mode there, and you're really in charge of the crew, and you're in charge of the daily workings of the ship. So you have to get really involved into that, and you understand that part of the job first. And it was quite an experience. It was a steep learning curve, but again, the Navy just seems to do a lot of things right, and that fleet up experience and learning from a CO, surface officer, and having a great crew around you. I mean, it all came together, but that was a wonderful experience on Boxer.
Well, a lot of people think that, leadership is scalable, but the same type of leadership is scalable. But really, you go from originally in your detachments, leading 12 to 15 sailors to being a commanding officer of a squadron leading 185 to an exercise like you had with East Coast and West Coast leading, 400 or 500 people. But all of a sudden you're on a ship with 1,000 sailors and 2,000 Marines. You've got to kind of change your leadership style a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, you do. And I think what mostly that involved for me was just having to trust and rely on others. So you obviously talk about what's important to you, what you think the things are that need to be accomplished, and how you're going to do it. You kind of set out your own mission statement, so to speak, and then but at the end of the day, you got to trust folks that take care of those 1,000 sailors and those 2,000 Marines, because you can't certainly can't do it on your own.
And that's what I call leading leaders. You go from direct tactical leadership of hands-on to those that you're leading to. There's no way you can put direct contact to 1,000, so you have to lead leaders and, like you say, entrust and count on them. And so building trust is an amazing process and part of a great leadership. So again, all right, Boxer goes out, deploys, and you're playing your role as Forrest Gump, and you get involved in another event that gains worldwide attention. Tell us who that was about. Wasn't it you were rescuing Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks, a.k.a. Captain Phillips. Yeah. That was a mission that came up while we were sitting up in the Gulf of Aden doing some work in some of the usual places up there, and really doing a lot of anti-piracy, counter-piracy work. And we got the call to go down and assist in this, what they assumed was going to be a rescue effort here when the Maersk Alabama got hijacked. So we made best speed down there, and again, I was the XO at the time, and we just got on station, and we got prepared to take on some additional assets that could be brought to bear, and that was another issue of having to find a place. That's what you always worry about as the XO, where people are going to sleep and eat and train, and where's everybody going to put their stuff. We got all that figured out, and it obviously was a successful mission, but it was, again, a privilege and honor to be part of that.
And now, wasn't the one-star admiral in charge of that? Wasn't that Michelle Howard? Was she riding the Boxer with you at that point?
Michelle Howard, yep. Admiral Howard, and she just got on board like a week earlier, and all this transpired. And I remember one poignant moment. I was, when you're XO, again, you don't sleep much. You tend to walk around the ship a lot. And I think it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I was walking around, and I wandered into Flag Plot, and Admiral Howard was standing in there with her watch team, and it was the very point where, if you remember in the movie, where Captain Phillips jumped out of the boat and took gunfire, and that was all happening while I was standing there with Admiral Howard, and just to watch her make some pretty cool and calculated command decisions around that little moment in time was pretty incredible to see. But again, that was just a team coming together, a team thrown together, coming together for a common mission, and it just all worked out as well as could be expected.
And I had the opportunity to serve with Michelle Howard going through training, and she's an exceptional, compassionate leader, and went on to be the first woman 4-star Vice Chief of Naval Operations, and so it was a well-deserved promotion for her. So you finished up and then became captain of Boxer and had a distinguished career there. And then I think you wrapped up your time in the Navy helping generate the Sea Services strategy, pulling together the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Navy to come up with a strategy, and a strategy that drives our performance and also drives the budget. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was a great experience. I've never been a strategy person before I got into that job, but I think that probably helped at the end. Not being a strategist, I think I brought a little bit more of an operator's perspective to the process. And once again, here I was pulling together a team of folks that had to work together and do something they hadn't done before, and write this strategy together. And that took a while. It took 2 years practically to get that completed, but that was a great experience. I certainly learned a lot. It was great to see that strategy get published, and it's already been superseded, but that's exactly what's supposed to happen. So the Navy's got a great new sea strategy, and a lot of the folks that worked on that new strategy were colleagues of mine that worked on the first one. So that's always refreshing to see that folks that you might have made a difference with were going on to continue the mission. But that was a great job, and I retired out of that position in 2015. And that's where I hung it up.
So Yeah. So basically, a kind of a theme that we've heard so far talking with you, Frank, is teamwork, and on top of teamwork, trust, and then adding a little innovation, but not only trusting your team and your fellow colleagues, but also trusting yourself and your instincts that have been developed over experiences that what the Navy does is building blocks of leadership, starting you off leading small teams and building up to leading major evolutions, major commands, etc. So now, Frank, you haven't given up your role as a leader in service. You're working with the Military Organization or Military Officers Association of America, MOAA, one of the largest lobbying entities in the U.S. and also focused on veterans. So tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, it's a great organization. I started with MOAA about a year and a half ago, and my job with the organization, I'm the director for council and chapter affairs. MOAA has, and as you said, sir, it's an advocacy organization. We have 355,000 members. Always, it's a perennial top lobbyist group in Washington D.C. that advocates for our veterans and their families, really to safeguard and champion their earned benefits. And every year, those benefits are at risk because of the budget and where other resources are needed. It seems like that's always the easiest place to come and look for some money to do other things. And we have a commitment to our men and women in uniform, actively serving and retired, that they ought to get what they signed up for, what we promised them. So we work very hard at advocating on their behalf. In my particular job, we have 400 affiliates around the United States, and by affiliates, that is chapters. Mostly it's councils. We have some state councils. We have virtual councils and satellite chapters. And when you add all that up, it's about 400 different organizations, all that represent MOAA, the boots on the ground folks, all over the United States. And I've got the privilege of working with them and doing all I can to help them carry out the MOAA mission, again, as the boots on the grounds folks that do a lot of the real hard work that don't get done out of our headquarters building. Yeah,
absolutely. As you said, to ensure that veterans and active duty get the benefits they earned. And it's veterans benefits, active duty benefits is a pot of money that can easily be attacked. And I think some of the areas that are being attacked would be commissary privileges or commissary support. Also, medicine for not only the service member but for their families. Would I be correct in talking about that? That they're being chinked away at prescription benefits. TRICARE benefits, VA care.
Exactly. And, every year we take on three big issues. We manage about 28 or so issues in general on our day-to-day work. But every year we have an event that's called, we call it now Advocacy in Action. And it happens for about 30 days. We just wrapped it up here at the end of the month. But it's an opportunity for all of our 355,000 members to be energized to go out and talk to their elected officials about those three real important topics that we take on for that particular year. This year, we always try to pick an advocacy topic that relates to active duty folks. We pick one that corresponds to our retired folks, and then we usually pick a healthcare topic. So this year, we are advocating for a 4.7% pay raise for our active duty folks, and that sounds like a lot. It's not. It's right at the consumer price index of what they ought to be receiving, and we're very hopeful that that's going to come through.
And so, what is the second issue you're working on?
So the second topic for us this year is the Richard Starr Act, and that is taking on this kind of an injustice here over over many years with our veterans that have served in Iraq and Afghanistan in particular, that are injured in combat, they're medically retired, and they don't get they don't get an offset with their disability pay unless they're above a certain threshold that we think is higher than it should be. So we're trying to get those folks, and there's thousands of them, to be treated more fairly under the STAR Act. And we've got great traction on that. And the third one, our health initiative, deals with mental health copays. And it was enlightening, something I didn't understand until we started talking about it. And of course, we all know how important mental health is, particularly these days. And if you go to get care under mental health, you end up paying a copay that's 2 or 3 times higher than a copay that you would pay for other health reasons. So we're trying to get some parity in that process and bring it on level with any kind of health care that you would get. So those are our 3 topics for this year. And again, we made great progress, and we make great progress because all of those members that belong to MOAA really do pitch in and become a voice, a large voice. 355,000 constituents, voting members, members of MOAA that speak with one voice on the issues that are most important to us.
Well, that's fantastic. And so what do we need to do to, I think if you're a young service member, that this would be a great organization to join because it's your union advocating for pay raise, for health care, for mental issues. And so I think I joined Frank in recommending membership in MOAA. In fact, I joined MOAA as a lifetime member because there were many benefits that come along with that besides sneakers that close with Velcro and polyester white pants in the catalog.
Yeah, and that's. I'm glad you bring that up. So that's the challenge. We are pretty good with membership. We've been pretty steady and actually growing a little bit lately in our national membership. The challenge we have is that we're an older demographic at MOAA. As a matter of fact, our average age of our median age of our members is 75 years old. And we get it. We recognize that. I mean, when you look at our mission to safeguard our earned benefits, that's a mission that comes in sharply into focus for us as we retire, and we want to become part of an organization that safeguards our pharmacy benefits and commissary benefits and our COLAs and our health care. That doesn't necessarily resonate to the younger crowd. It doesn't resonate with a 20 or 30-year-old who's got a family, who's deploying, who's worried about finding enough time to go to soccer practice and do those sorts of things, not necessarily focused on their earned benefits once they retire. So we get that, and it makes sense. I think what and we're doing everything we can to try to attract that younger demographic. And when I say younger demographic, it's the 40 to 60-year-old crowd. We're not talking about the youngsters. And the reason we look at that group is because, you think about it, that's the transitioning group, the folks that are coming out of uniform and transitioning into civilian life, and all those things that we do at MOAA mean a little more to them as they transition. But we're having some success, but we could use some more. It's really about getting our relief on board and getting folks to take up the mantle here earlier on. And I think that the way we appeal to that younger demographic is to come on board earlier, be part of the mission, just like you've always been part of a mission. You've always supported your fellow service members. Come on board with us and continue that service, and we'll all benefit from it shortly down the road. But we definitely need some younger folks to come.
Absolutely, and I think any older members that are listening to this podcast, get out there and talk to the younger folks in your circle about joining MOAA, because it is an organization. In the military, you say you can't become a member of a union, but hey, MOAA is out there advocating for your pay raise every year. And I think even active duty, you start thinking about your family members and their costs with TRICARE or copays. But the other thing you mentioned is about the copay for mental health care. And I think we need to remove the stigma of seeking mental health care. Think of it as a tune-up or just an adjustment, or somebody that knows more than you that can help you put the life in perspective and help you deal with any issues. And I think after 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, losing sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines to, suicide is something we need to resolve. And part of that is removing the stigma of mental health care, and also advocating for a smooth transition from active duty medicine to VA care. And I think there's a turbulence sometimes in the transition from DOD medicine to VA medicine. And I've testified to Congress about that, talked to other groups about that, and I think MOAA helps out with that.
Yep, we sure try to.
So, all right, Frank, you've led a distinguished career. You've been, from a small town in Pennsylvania. Next thing you know, you're directly in the middle of world events and action. Do you have any sort of philosophy on leadership, on life, on family that you'd like to impart on us?
I think family has always been the most important thing. I know it's the most important thing to you and a lot of us, and that's where you get your base and your foundation, and everything kind of starts from there. And I've been blessed with a wonderful family, Bridget. I've got 3 great kids that have always supported me. Always, whenever I'd come home and say, "Hey, we have new orders," it was never anything but, "Well, let's go," or let's do what we got to do. And that takes a whole lot off your shoulders when you got a family that supports you that way. And then you just go out and you take every job on the best you can, and you learn from what you've learned from before. You put that into practice, but then you keep an open mind, and I always go back to the team and the round table. You play to your strengths, and you bring people up where you need to, and you're much better as a unit when you listen to everybody's voice. And that's kind of guided me.
Well, thank you very much, Frank Michael, distinguished captain, leader at sea and ashore, thinker, advocate for our veterans and active duty members, a man of faith, which we didn't delve deeply into that, but a man of strong Catholic faith, a family man, a friend, and a mentor. Thank you very much for being on the Admiral's Almanac, Frank.
You're a good friend, sir, and have been for many years. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.
And thank you for joining us on the Admiral's Almanac with Captain Frank Michael. Please subscribe to the Admiral's Almanac wherever you get your podcasts. And until we meet again, here's wishing you a happy voyage home.